88 pounds and on his
Okay, welcome to American Dream Garage. Today I'm doing a different type of video in my Versa series. It's really going to be based on styling of what I would call the middle of the C3 run and the major styling changes they went through between 68 and 82. So I have behind me here 3 Corvettes that are key in that mid-year styling change. So first the 72, the last of the chrome bumper cars, front and rear. Then I have a 73, which is the last of the rear chrome bumper and the first of the Enduro, what I would call the Enduro nose, or some people call rubber bumper cars. And then over here a 74, which was the first of the rear rubber bumper Enduro bumper. So the end of the era of the chrome bumper cars versus the last of the chrome bumper cars. So be very curious as to what people's thoughts are on the styling of these cars. We'll go through in detail and show some of the differences in them. For me, I was 16 in 1974, so these cars were the new cars of the time. So I am a little more partial to those cars in that 73, 74 era. One thing to mention, one of the most popular years for the Corvette from a production standpoint was 1974. So almost 10,000 more cars sold, 37,074 versus 72 when they sold 27,000. So we'll go through them in a little bit more detail. Later in the video I'll show some pictures as well as some original sales literature and interiors and engines. To go through and talk about each of the cars, and each of the cars have some issues or things that were either the first or the last of their generation. So as I mentioned before, the 72 was the last year of the double chrome bumper, so front and rear. It's also the last year for the removable rear window, which I understand why, because it was a royal pain to get it in and out. It was the last year for the hydraulic or the air hidden windshield wipers, and the last year for the what I would call the shark finned vents on the side. Moving on to 73, the last year for the chrome bumper in the rear, the first year for the modified air vents for the brakes, the first year for what is cowl induction, and when I show the engines later I'll show you the actual cowl induction, but really hidden windshield wipers with no door. And then the first year for the front Enduro bumper. Again, I want everybody's opinions, but for me personally, the 73 is one of my favorites because I do like the Enduro bumper versus the chrome over here, but I do like the rear chrome versus the 1974. So in 1974, the first year for the rear Enduro bumper, 74 was really the only year that had the split down the center, if you see it. And in 75, they put bumperettes, black bumperettes on both sides. Then the other thing that this car has that was a last is the 454 motor. So 454 was, as last year was 1974. GM did hold on to the 455 in the Trans Am for 75 and also 76, and then pretty much went down to 400s as a maximum for Chevy 350. So these cars also had in 74 had the L82 motor, which became the top of the line in the Corvette after 1974. So we will go through and show you the engines of each and the interiors very quickly. All right, so let's take a look at the engine. So first we're looking at the 72. This particular car is a big block, rated at 270 horsepower. The 71 Corvette big block was 365, but they changed the standards of where they measured it, and also they included things like air cleaners, exhaust, and other accessories, made it a more realistic number. So that the difference between 365 and 270 isn't really as great as you know, blaming it all on smog control. In 72, the base engine I think was 200 horsepower, and they still had the LT1, although it was a tuned down, was 255 horse. So we move over to the 73. If you read one of the sites that I looked at showed the big block actually in 73 had 5 more horsepower. I don't know that I believe that. This particular car is the first year for the L82 motor. So I've always considered it a version of the LT1 engine. So 255 horsepower in 72 dropped down to 250 in 73. The base engine was still right around 200, maybe 195 horsepower. So this year was, as I mentioned, the first year for cowl induction, but the cowl induction into the intake from the hood was first year for that. So we move over to the 74. This particular car is a big block, and as I mentioned, also last year for the big block in a Corvette, in 75 they had, I think 75s were probably the worst year from a horsepower perspective, catalytic converter. They have the L82 still, I believe, but significantly less horsepower, maybe 220. This car is the same as the 72, rated 270 horse, and the L82 motor was still about 250, and the base L48 motor was 190 horsepower. Also has the cowl induction hood. So I would say from an engine perspective, I know people would frown on these later model Corvettes post 71 or 1970. Still pretty lively cars. I have a 74 Z28, which I think has the equivalent of an L82, although it's rated at 245 horse. I had a 73 Z that was also 245 horse. Still pretty fun cars to drive, and you know, pretty solid performance. This car happens to be a 4-speed car, so it makes it even more fun. From an interior perspective, we can show the interiors, but basically other than trim packages, they're pretty much the same, virtually I think unchanged, even from, somebody will prove me wrong, but I think unchanged even from the 78 model. The only differences in a lot of these is the level of trim. These last two cars have the leather options, and both have the automatic transmissions. So, all right, wrapping up this video, I would love to hear from people on what they think about these mid-year C3 cars, what they like or don't like about the various models. I've mentioned, you know, what I like, but we're talking about 1972 to 1974. So again, please comment or like the video, and if you haven't subscribed for future videos. Thanks.